Greetings and welcome to Island Space, a place where Caribbean cultures unite. I am Andrea JohnBaptiste, and I am so excited to be with you as we discuss the global influence of Caribbean music. Tonight, you will understand that the Caribbean region has a very rich history in the development of indigenous musical genres. From salsa, merengue, reggae, dancehall, soca, calypso, compa, zouk, and much more. The Caribbean musical culture has also significantly impacted the development of globally popular genres such as rap, hip hop, reggaeton, and Afrobeat. And this esteemed panel will discuss that evolution, the dynamic impact of the Caribbean music genres, the fusion of these genres, and the impact of the music beyond the shores of the Caribbean. Please welcome Viviam Maria-Lopez, who is a two-time Emmy nominee and DJ as well as television influencer. Viviam, welcome to Island Space, and we thank you for being with us this evening.
Thank you. It is a pleasure for me as well to be here with you and this wonderful audience online and here and there in the museum. Thank you again.
Absolutely. And this year we have another Bevel Rocker, an artist manager, well known, also a member of JARIA, the Reggae Industry, Association, straight out of Jamaica, representing again Bevel Rock Productions, Duane McDonald. Duane, greetings, and welcome to Island
Greetings.
Space.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much for inviting me to be a part of this great discussion. Um, Beautiful programming for our Reggae Month, and lovely to be here. Looking forward to the reasoning. Yeah, man. Thank you.
It's an honor, thank you. And with over 40 years international global experience, what representing one of my favorite islands and a place that I'm kind of associated with. I'm Dominican by injection. Some of you will get that. Don't tell it to the kids. But it is an honor to have with us Gordon Henderson, recording artist of Exile One, the first band of the Lesser Antilles to go global. And so, Gordon, it is an honor to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us at Island Space.
The honor is all mine. Thanks a lot for having me. I'm looking forward to something exciting this evening.
Absolutely, as are we. And last but definitely not least, colleague and important part of Island Space Caribbean Museum, Heather Baldwin, a board member, an intellectual property consultant, public relations extraordinaire, representing Trinidad and Tobago. Greetings and welcome to welcome home, Heather.
Thank you.
Thank you for being a
Thank
part of
you.
this panel.
Thank you. Thank you. And we have a McDowell from Jamaica and a McDonald from Jamaica. And the rest is Trini. The Baldwin is Trini.
Absolutely. Thank you for pointing all of that out. We're the Caribbean, right? We're all united and connected one way or another. And so it is certainly an honor to be with you today. Again, I'm Andrea JohnBaptiste, and I am also a board member of Island Space and always excited to be with you both, our panel guests online, as well as our studio audience. Thank you for being with us this evening. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get this party started. And so let's talk about the creative perspective as we explore the global influence of Caribbean music. So, Vivian, let's start with you. Would you share with us the history and evolution of Cuban music, its genres, and socio historical impact on Cuba and the region? You've got to unmute, Heather. I'm sorry, Vivian, we'd love to hear you.
No, no problem. Here we go. Thank you again, Andrea. Well, yes, the roots of most Cuban musical forms lie in Africa and Europe. Cuba's first inhabitants were the indigenous peoples like the Taínos, the Siboneyes, and the Guanahabadees. From 1492 to 1898, the country was a Spanish colony, and little is known about the folk music of Cuba before 1800, and some reference point to the indigenous music with instruments such as the conchs, maracas, which are actually still used, and wooden drums. In fact, one of the oldest sones from Cuba is thought to be Son de la Mateodora, which is dating possibly to the late 1500s, where you can hear some elements of the common 16th century European folk songs. Composer of this song is Teodora Gines, and very interesting, she's actually a Dominican musician. Now, Cuba received an influx of over 1 million African natives in the 300 years preceding its abolition of slavery in 1886, brought by the Spanish. Cuba's musical innovations arose from the interplay between the Africans who were settled working on large sugar plantations and the Spanish or Canary Islanders who grew tobacco on small farms. From this blend of origins, the Africans brought with them the percussion, the instruments, the rhythms, rituals, and dances, which were an intrinsic part of the religious life back home. And then the European influence on Cuban music resides in string instruments, especially the guitar, melodies, modern composing techniques, and lyricism from Spain and some European folk dances. Also, other influences that you might find are from French and French Caribbean, as well as Chinese immigrants who were there, who actually brought some of the instruments as well, like the corneta china. It's a Chinese wind instrument used in carnivals. So like those musicians who introduced the West African rhythms of the island, also Cuban musicians who performed outside of the island introduced traditional Cuban music to other cultures. Cuban rhythms expanded the American jazz vocabulary, and also American popular music has always been had a strong impact on the Cuba's music scene. You might remember, well, of course, legendary Nat King Cole. Well, he actually performed in Cuba's Tropicana nightclub, and in fact, he recorded 2 albums in Spanish. So again, that beautiful connection between both. So, and as waves of the generation migrated, exporting Cuban music around the United States and other countries, further fusing with other musical formats. That's mostly in the history. I don't know if you
What
want to
a
get into
thorough description. And certainly, Island Space, where Caribbean cultures unite, we have a representation of the maracas that Viviam just spoke of and the influence, right? Many of you from around the Caribbean, you grew up making them out the shak shak, as we call them in Jamaica, right? Did you know that they originated or were a huge part of the of Cuban music? Vivian, thank you so very, very much for, again, that very thorough explanation. And I'm sure that our studio audience, as well as our online audience, have learned so much, because I certainly did. So, we just hit up and spoke about the Spanish speaking primarily, right? Cuba's Spanish speaking country. Let's head over to the other side of the Caribbean and let's talk about the Francophone Caribbean, or the French-speaking Caribbean. And so, Gordon, give us an overview of the French Caribbean and its musical history. Research says that outside of the immediate region, France and Francophone African French Caribbean music is not popular, and it's often classified as world music. Why is that? And what can we do to maybe change that?
First of all, I would like to clarify a few misunderstandings. The first is, in our collective narrative, we have a tendency of referring to the French Caribbean. We loosely say that. But it should be more appropriately be termed the Creole, or the Creole-speaking Caribbean, Creolophone rather than Francophone. In fact, the vast majority of the almost 15 million population of all the islands combined, that is the islands from Haiti in the north all the way down to French Guiana, only a minute percentage of that population even speak French. Now, the common denominator of all these people happen to be Creole cultured and Creole speaking. Now, I would like to make an interesting observation. The group Kassav, which we may loosely call from the French Caribbean, has never recorded a single song in French. Kassav is strictly Creole, although I could quickly add that Kassav once did an album in Spanish. But there are implications and reasons for that. Um, Another important factor is Haiti, with 12 million population, is very, very proud of its Creolite, as we would say, Creoleness, if you will. And Creole is more widely spoken than French. Now, from a musical standpoint, quickly, the Africans brought many musical patterns, which were mainly drums and chant, across the Atlantic during the slave trade. And developments such as Caiso. Caiso came from West Africa. There are documents to prove that it went to the island of Martinique. And when the French Revolution came about in 1792, the planters moved to Trinidad with their slaves and brought it down. It eventually became Calypso in the Creole language. One may want to be reminded of the fact that probably the first million selling Calypso in the United States was a song titled Rum and Coca-Cola, but the original version in Trinidad was in Creole, l'année passée, meaning last year. There's lots to be said about the evolution of music in this Creole Caribbean, but I'll stop for now.
You could keep going because you have just schooled us, and I stand corrected, and I believe that many of us stand corrected, Gordon, and we thank you for that. No more Francophone, no more French, Creole Caribbean. That we say. Can I say that together? A little patois and so on. And thank you so much, Marie McCarthy, because you know what? As I'm seeing your comments on the screen, I hear you saying amen, school them, and we thank you. Please, if you are on Facebook, and certainly studio audience, you can let our executive producer Khalid know that you would like to ask a question. We welcome them as well. And if you'd like to ask something of a specific guest, please be sure to put that in the chat. All right, Jamaica, Jamaica, let's talk about your musical genres from mento to reggae to dance hall and everything in between. I understand there's dance hall trap now. I'm not even sure what trap is, but you'll school me on that one day. So, Duane, Jamaica has a globally recognized musical history, right? How did we get there? And what are some of maybe the threats that we are experiencing as it relates to the production and distribution of Jamaican music?
All right. Well, thanks again for having me. So I'm not quite the academic. I'm more the practitioner. We have had so many studies on our music and on our development as a nation, and the effect we have had globally as it relates to our music. But thankfully, I've been able to travel very often in my work and experience, you know, how thoroughly the music has penetrated the global market. I mean, how did we get here? There's so many reasons. First, I would say that Jamaican culture, the music, to me at least, is more of a conduit for Jamaican culture, and the world has really been taken with Jamaican culture over the last 40 years, 50 years, 60 years. From the way we dress to the way we dance to the way we speak, um, our culture and our vibration has really spread across the landscape. We have been fortunate to be blessed with some generational talents, of course, Bob Marley and Jimmy Cliff, Burning Spear. These, apart from being great ambassadors for Jamaican culture, they are also the top of the top of the top as it relates to artistry, and for a small island like Jamaica, that has been incredible and has been, of course, in my opinion at least, one of the major reasons why our music and our culture has been able to penetrate as much as it has. As you just mentioned, we have the mentor in the 50s to the 60s, to the ska, to the rocksteady, to the reggae, to the dancehall. So we have gone many iterations as it relates to popular culture, to our music, to how we choose to express ourselves based on what's happening on the island, based on the development of our practitioners and just the vibrations of what's going on. And it has been really, for me, it's a miracle, the number of top class talent that Jamaica has produced over the years. In addition to that, we have had, thankfully, many business persons, businessmen and businesswomen that have chosen to invest in our culture over the time. We have been blessed with a number of legendary record labels, from the Channel One and the Studio One and the Jammies, come right through to the VP Records, the Island Records. It has taken a tremendous effort, investment, and belief in our culture to really look on it as something that we can exploit and push to the global marketplace. And then, of course, I mean, Island Space Museum is based in Florida. It's the diaspora, as I would understand it, has driven it, and really the spread of our culture and our music comes down to the diaspora as well. The carrying of our culture to the world experiencing that, the world being introduced to our slang, or the way we speak, the reggae beat, the bass line, how we dance, Rastafari, and what Rastafari has meant and does mean throughout the globe, and all these are conduits for a culture that have allowed our music to really explode and to develop and to gain so much traction worldwide. And one thing as well, there have been so many great practitioners that have paved the way, that have gone out there and made the sacrifice, gone on the road and gone to tour. No one knows reggae music in whichever country that they chose to go at that time, and they went and they did the hard yards, they did the hard miles, and they spread the music. They did the small clubs and in the bigger clubs and in the stadiums. They did the small cars and in the little buses and then the tour buses. So a lot of work has been really put in from our creative industry to get where we are, and it's something that I'm really, really proud of, As it relates to the challenges, I don't know if you want to go in that now, or if that's something for later. You asked a question as it relates to
You know what I would like to ask you about is really right now we have Reggae Month on the island, and it's
Right.
all over. I don't know. I know that COVID has scaled it back somewhat, Well, what
Hmm.
does that mean for the region? Because I know that there's reggae open universities, lots of concert. Well, I don't know with COVID, but what does Reggae Month mean for the rest of the Caribbean? Has it expanded outside of Jamaica? Are we seeing any international impact of February on the rest of the region?
Right. Well, I mean, Reggae Month has been an initiative for over 10 years now in the island, really to put a highlight and celebrate our music nationally, as well as be a tool for education for the younger, demographic. Some of them may not know these great legendary reggae songs and dancehall songs that we know. So it essentially was a tool to kind of develop that national pride and celebration and education around our music. Thankfully, it has expanded and grown out of that into a worldwide celebration of reggae music. As you mentioned, COVID has certainly slowed that down. Prior to COVID, Reggae Month was a time when the world descended on the island to celebrate the music, to experience the music in the land, and then carry that with them as well. There have been many, many great initiatives in the UK, in the US, all over the world as it relates to celebrating Reggae Month. I wouldn't say I so much see that celebration in the Caribbean, you know, but I would imagine that COVID has had a part to play in that. Um, but it's a great initiative. I have been a part of the Reggae Month celebrations for a very, very long time, and it's something I take great pride in. It's a time that we also award the stalwarts that have built our music, you know, in that month. It's the month of Dennis Brown's birthday, of Bob Marley's birthday, of Bonnie Ruggs' birthday. So many of us, and it's also really a time when the industry gives back to the community. There are a lot of free concerts where entertainment practitioners perform for free or less money than they usually would do, just to be able to give our people that first-hand experience of the music. Many persons, the first time they're seeing some of these stalwarts of our music, it's during Reggae Month on a free concert in the middle of Kingston City. So it's something we're very proud of, and it continues to grow. It continues to grow into a global celebration. There are a number of events that are organized outside of Jamaica around that time period, celebrating too, which is something that we're really proud of.
Thank you so much. And yes, we are seeing the impact of Reggae Month. It's Black History Month, like Dwayne just said, Bob's birthday, Dennis Brown's birthday, Bunny Ruggs' birthday. Um, so Hugh Blackford, I believe it was, Richard, just asked the question, how many genres of music has Jamaica produced? And I know that I believe the UNESCO has Kingston as maybe 9 or 10. And so, Dwayne, do we have a number?
I'd have to
Is there a
count,
finite number?
on the fly. I mean, we mentioned Mento, Ska, Rocksteady, Reggae, and Dancehall. Those are kind of five of the foundation. We do have, folk music like Poco, which one could count as a genre as well. So that would be a six, and then there are many offshoots as well, of that core that we mentioned. So reggae music, you have dub, you have roots reggae, you have one drop reggae, you have regular dancehall, 90s style dancehall, you have digital dancehall, you have dancehall trap. So there are many shoots of I don't know if I could come up with a number right now, but that's also something that we're very proud of in terms of the number of genres. The influence of the dembow rhythm that became a genre, because reggaeton, essentially the root of that was the dembow rhythm, and every rhythm that reggaeton produces, or majority of the rhythms, are coming from that foundation. That's incredible to me. Dubstep is coming from, you know, King Tubby's and all those effects that he used on the music at that time, and a genre evolved out of that. So I couldn't tell you a number. You'd have to ask a real academic for that one.
Well, you sound quite academic with that response. Thank you. And I don't even know that a real academic would be able to give us a finite number because of
Right.
it, so many. But um, Thank you so much for for that great body of information, Dwayne. Heather, my friend in TNT, Trinidad and
Yeah.
Tobago, you all have quite a few genres as well. Soca, calypso, carnival music. Walk us through those distinctions because I hear people say soca, I hear people say calypso and carnival music, but I don't know the difference. I just want to walk up my waist.
Okay, well, it's not, I am very fortunate to have been born into Twin Island state that it's like a melting pot of cultures. So we have the English influence, we have the French influence, we have the Spanish influence, we have the Indian influence, and we have the African influence. And what has happened to our music in Trinidad and Tobago, people know a lot about calypso, and born out of calypso came soca. In fact, Rashorty I is the person who is responsible for the creation of soca because he felt that we needed something that was more dance type music. It was it. I think of soca as sometimes the R&B of calypso, or it's just different. There's now groovy soca. There is power soca. Power soca is very fast paced, whereas groovy soca is like, as I said, the R&B of soca. But coming back to calypso, calypso came out of protest. You have social commentary, you have political commentary, you have dance versions of calypso where you just want to free up and enjoy yourself. But what I love about the music, whether it's calypso or soca, we're just focusing on that for now. If you want to take a musical journey into current affairs or the history of Trinidad and Tobago, all you need to do is listen to calypsos over the years. Like, for instance, right now, because of COVID, if you listen to the music that is being created by our soca artists and our calypsonians, you can hear the angst and the sadness, but yet the joy in the music because they're talking about the fact that we can't have carnival. At this point in time, Trinidad would have been just a booming with fetes and concerts and shows and people gathering in very large numbers to enjoy the music. What is happening now because of COVID? We have some safe zones. So some entertainment is taking place, but you have to be fully vaccinated and the numbers have to be small. And but I'm glad to say that I'm seeing a new trend in that people are recognizing COVID, I think, has opened up a lot of people's eyes. I hope it opens more that our music is not seasonal. We shouldn't just be creating music for carnival. We create music for the year. And one of the people that I admire who has always done that is David Rudder. David Rudder always created his music for the year, not just for carnival. Because what happens, and it's sad, but there are some people and there are some radio stations, for instance, that once Ash Wednesday comes, they stop playing soca and they revert to playing all the foreign music. Not that there's anything wrong with foreign music, but this is our own. And we need to see the value. And I see our music being influencing, for instance, Justin Bieber has a song, I'm sure everybody knows, Sorry. And whenever I hear Sorry, I keep saying, why doesn't he come to Trinidad and Tobago and let a serious band rework it and play it the way it should be done? Because that is influenced by soca. But in Trinidad and Tobago, we have another type of music called parang, which is influenced by the Spanish, because we are very near to Venezuela. So we also speak patois. My grandmother was Bajan, but she used to speak French patois. So you find we have parang music. We have ours, if we come back to the calypso and the soca, it is now being heavily influenced by Afrobeats, by Zouk, and cadence and a whole mix. I also notice, and I'm very happy to say this, that what makes our music full bodied and beautiful is the serious brass influence of the instruments in calypso and soca. And I noticed some of the younger entertainers have gone back to the roots of our calypso and included some serious brass, because to me brass is to calypso and soca what the baseline is to reggae and dancehall. And if you infuse the brass in our music, it really makes a big difference. And we are seeing, like for instance, if I hear soca music or even calypsos being played, I can listen to it and I can tell you exactly which island it comes from. I can tell you the difference between soca that is from Barbados, from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, from Grenada, Byron Lee, for instance. Every time I heard Byron Lee's music, I knew that was Byron Lee because you can hear that kind of reggae fusion in it. And now soca and calypso is also influenced by our East Indian culture. So we have chutney soca. And earlier I talked about parang music. We have parang soca. We have the traditional parang that is more slower. And now we have parang soca, which is more dance oriented. And it, as I said, if you want a fabulous history lesson, listen to the music of your country, especially in Trinidad and Tobago. Listen to chutney, listen to soca, listen to calypso, and the way in which they bring the story together in such an amazing way. It it's just beautiful. That's all I have to say. It is just beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful because we are the Caribbean, right? So, we have broken down and spoken about the historical context and impact of Cuba, Dominica, as well as Haiti, um, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica. So, panelists, I want to ask, what are some of, based on this discussion and your knowledge, what are some of the collective strengths that we have, and how can we leverage them for an increased and systemic regional collaboration? What can we do? So I'm going to start with Vivian. What are your thoughts, Vivian, on overall strengths of regions and how to leverage them?
Well, I think that previously we've had cross fertilization as a musical trend by the likes you might remember, Paul Simon and Peter Gabriel, David Byrne. They were done with great success. So I think we must continue collaborating. It's showing us that yes, it was a success and it could happen. There's a strong movement, for example, of Rastafarians in Cuba, and there's a project which I enjoy very much, the Havana Meets Kingston project. And for example, here in Miami, there was a band called Haitiando, which had a melding of Haitian musicians with Cuban, Puerto Ricans, Venezuelans, and a little bit of all those different rhythms. Again, so beautiful, beautiful work that has been done abroad and here locally. And again, the Cuban music, that was taken over to Africa, which then developed to a variety of other pop, ways like Congo jazz, Makusa, and many others, Africando, Ricardo Lemvo. So all these collaborations, I think they can happen. They're successful, and I really believe it's important to continue joining forces for continued projects.
Absolutely. And so, Duane as well as Gordon, you are both practitioners. What do you think about the collaborations? And also, let's talk about some of those barriers that may uh, negatively impact our systemic collaboration. So, Gordon, please.
Okay. I noticed that we have focused a lot on the art. We spoke a lot of genres, of fusions, of the history of how the genres develop. I would like to invite everyone, let's think a little bit of the industry. Yes, we've had a lot of artists working together. We have seen a lot of fusion of various genres voluntarily sometimes by accident. The art, yes, but do we have any structures? Do we have a Caribbean label that would be not in terms of production, because every island in Jamaica, there are tons of productions. Every islands in Vincent, Dominica, Haiti, but we do not have a structure that can distribute, even select what we think is marketable among ourselves. Dominica, for example, for the past 20 years, interrupted a little bit by COVID, has launched the World Creole Music Festival. And Creole from a broad definition, because tons of reggae artists have performed, artists from Haiti, Trinidad, the best from practically every island. So that is from a festival standpoint. Do we have an organization in the Caribbean that would link our festivals, distribute our artists? One of the most lucrative areas of the business, forgive me for speaking a lot because I didn't speak very much, and I believe in equity and
Preach, brother, preach.
in
We are
balance.
having a good lecture and lesson in here. Absolutely. Please continue.
But I will hurry. One of the most lucrative areas of the music business anywhere, of the organized music industry, is copyright, music publishing. Most of our artists, even in Jamaica and Trinidad, where there are copyright societies, there are many artists who have absolutely no idea what copyright is about. We need a Caribbean organization that can ensure that songs are published, that can represent our songwriters and composers abroad. We need music education. We need our DJs to be aware of music appreciation, that we must admit that there's a certain type of mediocrity that reigns across the region. The topics are about wine and wine and wine, and for the last 20 years we've been whining. I noticed that Heather mentioned that in Trinidad there has been soca from the 70s, surely, and groovy soca and power soca and whatever soca, which is in fact augmenting the tempo and slowing it down and bringing it to moderate. And we need to work from an industry standpoint. We need to work on the education of the artists. We need to work on matters of distribution. What does streaming mean today? How do we distribute music? So I do not want to monopolize too much, but I would like to throw that in. Let's try to focus a little bit on industry, because the art is okay. Our artists are very good. They are very good.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that great segue into the industry and the systems that we need to be talking about. Heather, please, you wanted to share something. Please unmute, Heather.
Gordon talked about distribution and so, but he talked about something that is very important: education of the people, our artists and producers and so in the industry. I happen to have worked as the PR manager and the membership manager for the Copyright Music Organization of Trinidad and Tobago. And you would find that people are producing great music, but they, even though they are members, they're not registering the music and understanding that if the music is not properly registered, it goes as what you call an orphan work because they don't know who it belongs to. And therefore, royalties cannot be applied to the song, even though it might be very popular. I am glad to see that as of December of 2021, Trinidad and Tobago was certified by the United Nations World Intellectual Property Organization. We now have a National Intellectual Property Training Center, which is part of the Intellectual Property Office, which is also part of the Office of the Attorney General and the Ministry of Legal Affairs. And 28 citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, after a 2.5-year process, were certified as intellectual property rights trainers by the United Nations World Intellectual Property Organization. And what we are hoping to do when the center is officially launched sometime this year, COVID has delayed a lot of it, is to start that training process, because a lot of times we have a good product, we have good catalogs, but people don't even know the value of what they have. And unfortunately, I don't think it's just the Caribbean, but because music, for instance, is an intangible asset, people think that it's free. It is not free. They can understand why they should pay for a car, but they can't understand sometimes why licensing fees are necessary if you are having an event, so that the artists and the creators of the music can get rewards, financial rewards, especially in the COVID situation. And I'm sure you all have noted that some of the large entertainers and artists and creators in the United States have been selling their catalogs. Bruce Springsteen just sold his music catalog for $500 million. And that seems to be the trend. I believe John Legend, um, Tina Turner, a set of them recently, and they were saying part of it is because people are recognizing, as we are in the Caribbean, that you cannot depend on touring. As Gordon said, you have to look at it as a business. And for a long time, we haven't been looking at the business aspect of it and ensuring that when you have somebody like you have a Kitchener, Sparrow, these people, they should be rolling in money, but they are not. And that to me is unfortunate because they have added so much value to the Caribbean as a region, not just their individual territories. And we have so much talent in the region, but we have to find a way to harness it and understand the economic value of what we have in terms of creative assets. So part of that is
Absolutely.
education.
Well said. It's an unfortunate truth that I hear consistently from the region about the lack of kind of our overarching umbrella, our systemic supports, as well as the infrastructure for not only production, but primarily distribution. And it does start with education. Thank you so very much, Heather and Gordon. So let me ask you this. Gordon brought up, what does streaming mean to the group? And so I want to find out, as we talk about this systemic issue, and Duane, you are a practitioner, you are an artist manager, you're helping artists to be part of the business. What's the role of the artist manager? Is there anything that artist managers should be prioritizing? Talk to us from your perspective about building this system.
All right. Well, I mean, an artist manager is responsible for managing of course, the business affairs of the creative, the practitioner, and charting the course for success of that creative and that artistic practitioner. Part of that is helping the artist to define what that success is. Not all artists um, have the same definition of what success is, based on the type of music that you're doing, based on your goals as an individual person. Some persons, they're looking to sell and stream the most records possible, and that's their goal. And they want to go mainstream. Some persons, it's more about touring and performing and expressing themselves in that way. So I mean, the artist manager essentially is the head cook and bottle washer of everything to do with the artist, from strategizing the path for the artist from a business perspective, to developing the artist and their artistry, you know, to networking and linking them with the various platforms and tools that can propel them and put them on a larger scale, and of course earning money, and being knowledgeable about all the revenue streams that exist as it relates to music, and how best to exploit, for lack of a better word, that particular artist or music, to make the most money. And there, in my opinion at least, there is no one answer to the question that is across the board for artists. You of course have some main revenue stream sources that you have to cover those bases. You have to make sure, and Gordon touched on some of them. Publishing, royalties, distribution and streaming. All these things are very, very important, especially in today's age. Um, in this time of COVID, it was very interesting. Majority of the artists that did well and stayed above water were the ones that put effort into these various mechanisms outside of performing the music live. So making sure that their catalog is properly registered, making sure that they are actually promoting the music on the streaming platforms as well. Because we may think that one particular form of promotion will result in amazing streams, when you really need to understand how the streaming ecosystem works, how playlisting works, what's my goal, what's my target playlist, where do I want my music to go, what's the country that I anticipate my music streaming the most. Am I promoting to that country, or am I promoting to a country that's not really listening to my type of music? If I am promoting to a country that's not listening to that type of music, how am I going to break into that market? What are the strategies to be employed? And we spoke about collaboration a while ago. Who can I collaborate with in those countries to break my music into new markets? So the manager is very, very critical. And I also, would like to point out that it's not really about the manager, it's about the management team. There are many different functions that come into play as it relates to the success of an artist, from marketing to publicity. We mentioned artist development. We mentioned touring as well. Managing a tour and knowing how to do that is completely different from knowing how to get into the right platforms, the distribution system, and how soon should I upload my music prior to it being released. Once it's in the system to be released, what should I be doing? Who should I be interfacing with? So, there's so many things that managers need to really be doing to ensure the success of the artist, and it's very, very critical. Any artist that has success without a manager, hats off to them, because I don't know how they do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you so much. And I just want to recognize some of our guests that are online who have been contributing to the chat. So thank you so much, Damien. We have an RG Shalom, I believe it is. Thank you. Pickaxe, aka Uncle Raymond. Thank you so much. Richard, thank you. And Lloyd Stanberry, another one of our family of Island Space. He's a board member, esteemed board member as well. So Richard has a very, very poignant comment. And so I don't know that this is the one, but we'll go ahead and read this one. I wanted to talk about the one that while Duane was speaking, but there are theoretically 8 primary genres. There's Dukunumento, Nyabingi, Rocksteady, reggae, DJ, and dancehall. It is noteworthy that in the 1950s, Jamaica did produce a smattering of blues, jazz, and R&B styling, which late morphed into ska. Roots reggae, etc., are subgenres of reggae, while reggaeton, dubstep, etc., are similarly subgenres of dancehall. Thank you for that intense music education and history, Richard. Thank you so much. So this is the comment that I wanted to share. I believe that COVID has provided an excellent opportunity to recalibrate our approaches to music and entertainment. Streaming is not simply an alternative to live performances, but it is, in fact, the way entertainment will be delivered to a mass market going for ya. Booyaka, booyaka, booyaka. That means yes, I agree. Prom, prom. Amen. Artist management must now create strategies to capitalize on the opportunities now on offer. Absolutely. Well said. And so thank you. And then Lloyd Stanberry had a question, which I think is very important. What role should the Caribbean diaspora play in building a collective global distribution system? For anyone on the panel who would like to take that? Duane. Got to unmute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I
And
fully
rewind.
agree with Lloyd in that. Are you hearing me now?
Yes.
You're hearing me now? Okay, great. Yeah, the diaspora has a huge role to play. And I think a good example of the success of this has been the success of Afrobeat in the market space. We have seen an explosion in the last maybe 4 or 5 years of Afrobeat. And these are artists that are African, from Ghana and Gambia and Kenya and Nigeria. They have taken over the marketplace with their music. One of the largest songs last year was from an artist, Wizkid and Thames, two African artists, to the point that Justin Bieber had to redo their songs and collaborate with them on their songs. And I believe that the diaspora had a large part to play. Galvanizing our community as a Caribbean is very, very important. And we need to create platforms that we can, and some of them exist already, to be honest with you, but to really champion these and use them and develop them even more to be able to galvanize our music, and music that we deem on the level to really capture the world, rally around that music, that is very, very important and key for us, and a great way for us to collaborate. And as I said, one of the main ways is really creation of platforms to galvanize. And when I say platforms, it can take many forms, from websites to social media pages to TV shows and radio stations and DJs and playlists on streaming platforms that are the main playlists for these platforms and that kind of thing. So it's very, very critical, Lloyd. I really appreciate that comment. And it's something that not just the diaspora, but certainly the diaspora, has the greatest access to the world to create that. Yeah, man, for sure.
Excellent point. Gordon, I know you have a comment, and then Viviam, I want to ask you about the role of media to piggyback on what Duane just said. But Gordon, go ahead.
Well, quickly, I'd like to say that there's something that Duane said, which is closely linked to Lloyd's question. Duane spoke of artists crossing over to mainstream. And sometimes when we speak to artists, they think of mainstream, if we take a look at the American market, as if mainstream would be one market. We understand the American market to be 21.7, I'm reading, 21.7% hip hop, 20.1% pop, 14% rock, 10% R&B, 8.7% country, 5.8% Latin, and I don't know going down the line what percentage Caribbean music represents. And crossing over to mainstream would mean, would people in the pop 20.1 be interested in what we do? Would it be the R&B people? Would it be the hip hop people? So it is important that we understand what we call mainstream, what we call crossover, and of course, if Latin represents 5.8%, the Caribbean diaspora collectively should be able to take us somewhere to at least 3%.
Speak this truth to these powers because you just broke it down. I mean, I was waiting to hear the percentage. Um, waiting, waiting, still waiting. Thank you so much for highlighting that, Gordon. So we've got some work to do, huh? Heather, you also had a comment. Please share.
Um, I was listening very carefully to what Gordon was saying. And for some, unfortunately, I find in the Caribbean, when we talk about going mainstream, we only look at the American market. We don't look at Europe. We don't look at the African market. We don't look at the Indian market. For instance, in Trinidad and Tobago, we produce music that could be easily used in film in India because we have artists in Trinidad and creators in Trinidad who can create. In fact, I know of one guy, I stand corrected because there probably have been more, but while I was working in a collective management organization, there was a young man there who had one of his songs put into an Indian film. But somehow we don't look at that market. We are not looking, look at what Afrobeats has done. We produce music in Trinidad and Tobago that could easily get into collaborations, and some of it has happened with Afrobeat artists and blow up big in that market. And there are millions of people there. The other thing that I would like to talk about is I myself managed a jazz band for a number of years, and for about 5 years. And very often, when I meet young artists in my country, they come with their cousin or some friend, and that's their manager. And they don't really understand the management of the artist or the management, the business aspect of it. Because you could talk loud and gallery, as we would say in Trinidad, does not mean that makes you a good manager. You have to understand how to approach finances. You have to look professional. You have to be on time. You have to understand the quality of the product that you are selling, and that for I'll give you all a quick example. I listened to a young man on a radio station the other day who was asked, he's a presenter, and he was asked, he's also, I guess, a DJ, and he had to read a script, an ad for one of their advertisers. And he started criticizing the script and saying he doesn't know who wrote this and all. Next thing they silenced him and he came back and he had to read the script. He did not seem to get it. That is not your business. The script, the quality of the script is not your business. The advertiser pays part of your salary. So if you criticize the advertiser and he pulls his advertising from your station, you might be out of a job. And it's the same thing. The promoters, the managers of the artists have to understand the dynamics of business. And it is a business, and you have content that a promoter wants or a company wants, and you have to put forward your best foot so that when they see your product, they have other people they could go to, they want you. And part of it is the way you approach them, the confidence with which you sell your product to them, and you deliver on time and quality.
Good word, Heather. We just had some church up in here because I want to tell you the amount of amens from our studio audience, which is very small, the huge laughter, and the bobbleheading that was going on as Heather was dropping some knowledge on us today, right? Thank you so much for that, Heather. So before we move into a little bit more of this, I want to ask Vivian. For those of you who do know me, you know that I am a part of the media. I do have a radio show, and I'm highly committed to putting out positive music, okay? Good sound, even from artists that, as they would say in Jamaica, not have no name. That's exactly what I want to do. And so, Vivian, what is the role of media in your opinion? I know what my opinion is, that just shared a little, but how do we galvanize, mobilize, and make all of the things happen or be part of that construct in the development of this Caribbean music industry system?
Well, it is extremely important. Media plays an essential role in strengthening this globalization, opening doors for cultural exchange. Remember, we give voice to the myriad of musicians and performers, some who are well known, but there are many who are independent and emerging artists. So again, it's we're giving them the full power and a lot of support. Of course, we can maximize the market penetration of music and information utilizing the traditional media, like radio, television, and written communication. But we should also engage a lot with the science of time. Nowadays, with the new technologies, is very important. Media contributes to creating networks of communication and social structures. And again, to me, nowadays, thinking so far ahead, we are thinking radio, and I love radio. It's my favorite medium. Passionate about it, but I understand that we have to connect also with the listener in a more visual way. So the internet and social media are great marketing tools to help increase this global awareness of products and services. We can reach out to viewers worldwide. Again, once the music is online, artists can then find an audience among the user base of each platform, and in fact, introduce our sounds and music, the Caribbean music, to brand new audiences. Probably before you didn't have them. The fans can enjoy new music, they can purchase merchandise, and they can follow Caribbean artists across their career. In the past, that was not easy or possible unless you had a big label company behind you, or a producer. So I think nowadays, it's democratized a lot of the efforts. These new technologies empower our artists who can produce their own music. They can upload it onto the internet, and they can promote it through different channels. As far as music production, I think the most significant change is that artists no longer need to necessarily go or rent studio time. They can record from home. They can actually produce right there. They can be at different locations, different countries. So again, you can do more of the cross unity of being in Jamaica and Trinidad, and we can be here in Miami and create all these wonderful albums that could have a little bit of the flavor of all of us. And you can do it from your own home studio. So again, smaller boutique and artist-owned labels, and again, giving more and more power to the listener, as well as power to the artists themselves. And the media, again, we connect. We're radio, but perhaps you want to do a YouTube live or a Facebook live or something while you're doing your program, and that way people are listening, but they're also connecting with you in the new forms of technology. So I think media is very, very strong, very influential. But yes, we do have to move on and follow with the sign of times to really connect, make that longer global, bring us closer to home.
Absolutely. We certainly do that. Now, in sharing Caribbean music, are there any challenges that you've experienced? And if so, are there any ways or suggestions for mitigating that? Asking for a friend.
I
Duane,
guess
you're
that's
going
to
to take
me.
that? Thank you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
man, no problem. Yeah, well, I mean, challenges as relates to Caribbean music. Again, the point Gordon made is a huge point, and it's very poignant what he's saying. In that, take for example reggae music in America. Now, of course, reggae music is popular worldwide, and we know this, but it's also a niche genre in America. As Gordon pointed out, when you look on the numbers and the percentages, it's really a small percentage of persons comparatively that consume the music on that scale, and that's reggae music. So as you go into the other formats of Caribbean expression, the market space shrinks and it shrinks and it shrinks. So of course, you are a small market space trying to look for big impact, which is a huge challenge, So really and truly, in terms of ways to mitigate that, is essentially, as I mentioned before, galvanizing that small marketplace and looking at numbers. For instance, if you have 500,000 Caribbean persons somewhere, and the population is how much of a billion, say for instance, if that 500,000 is consistently receiving the music, has access to the music, you can promote to that 500,000 with a concerted effort and get to them. The impact you're having, even though it's amongst a smaller market space, is very big, And then if that small market, rallies around your music, it can explode from there. So for me, it's really about looking on the platforms that we have and expanding those platforms and developing those platforms in the new media, So there was a time before when we're looking on the most popular radio station program and the most popular DJ, and the mission is to get your song on that radio station program because the listenership is of this level. That still exists, of course, but now you have streaming. Everyone is using their phones, and that's what they're consuming media nowadays. A lot of people aren't listening to the radio as much and that kind of thing. And even when they're in their cars, they're listening to a streaming application. What's the largest platform for our Caribbean people on that streaming platform? Does one even exist that the Caribbean can rally around and say, that's the platform, or those are the 10 platforms? We have to create these things. We have to develop these things. We have to help ourselves, essentially, So that's where I stand on that.
Good word, Duane. Thank you so much. Develop that critical mass. And I know, Vivian, you wanted to jump in here.
Yes, and sort of like a little bit of what Duane was saying, because the music industry has changed tremendously in the last couple of decades. I mean, the internet revolution has transformed the way that we create and consume the music, and the control of the labels again has been given to the consumer. We also have the digital technologies that are available to all, so users can listen, download, and share music through the online platforms for free. So I see this big challenge, of course, for artists then to really, earn, large revenues from music sales. You're getting all this free music or sharing it, automatically. And what's going on with the artists or the labels as well? The performers, they need to have, massive numbers, like Dorian was saying, of streaming hits online to again get some revenue. Long-term deals of the record labels as well as live shows have been a challenge too. And the music, I think I was mentioning this before, is more visual than ever. So promotion, has to be with that in mind. Artists has to be reinventing themselves constantly, being, connecting over and over with those listeners and viewers, because things have changed. And also it affects the radio airplay. When you land into a streaming service playlist, you can get visibility and exposure there. So what happens to the airplay? So all that, happens to be those challenges that we're facing, but we have to manage them and live with them and go with the times, definitely.
Absolutely. Manage them, live with them, and move forward with the times. Heather, you also wanted to jump in.
You also, I think COVID has also shown us that we have to think outside of the box. I think everybody has been alluding to that. But there's something I have to talk about very quickly. My mind was just blown recently. How many people here saw The Harder They Fall? Anybody saw the Netflix film, The Harder They Fall? If you haven't, you should. Because, it blew my mind? I never thought that you can use reggae music in a Western. And when I saw the Harder They Fall, and I saw those people riding into the town to reggae music, and it was Barrington Levy's song, I'm broad, I'm broad, I'm broad. I mean, it worked so beautifully and they had about 4 or 5 reggae songs on the soundtrack. And the soundtrack is brilliant. But the point I'm making is you really have to think outside the box. And as Caribbean people, we are still doing the same thing the old way. But the world has changed, and COVID has shown us that we have to think outside the box, do things differently. The other thing that I could speak from Trinidad and Tobago, and maybe from some other Caribbean territories, but particular my country, Trinidad and Tobago, Bruno Mars brought out an album in 2016, 24 Karat Magic, I believe it was. And he toured on that album for 4 going into 5 years until he did his new album. I'm a serious Bruno Mars fan. An Evening with Symphonic. In Trinidad and Tobago, because there's a seasonality to producing soca music, we expect our artists and our creators to to create soca music every year. In fact, I heard some time ago 1,500 new soca songs were created in one year. And of that 1,500, maybe say 100 played. And if it doesn't play in that year of creation, it is shelved somewhere. So there's an amazing catalog of music just sitting there, waiting to be explored. And we feel that our artists are like just mass producing music and it's only for a year. It is not for a year. That is why we have to look at other avenues to exploit financially and economically our music. And I don't know what happens. Maybe Duane can jump in here, or Viviam, or Gordon, to say what happens in their territories, because this is ridiculous. And also the way they release songs from an album, they release them one at a time. So we have to look at
Heather,
all of
thank
that.
you so much for that insight, for illuminating. I mean, I find it interesting. 1,500 songs and 100 got played. Wow, that's amazing. So before we move on, we're getting ready to close out, and we want to speak to the future. We've talked about our history, our commonalities. We've talked about our industries, or the need for us to create one, to think outside the box. And so I'm going to ask our panelists about some very specific key steps that perhaps we can take. But before we do that, Damien had a really good question or statement. He had two comments that I wanted to go to. The one prior to that, please. Is the categorization of music a factor? For example, during the Grammys, any category for cadence, soca, etc. So food for thought. And then our next one from Damien Dublin, thank you. Would a Caribbean version of the Grammy Awards give impetus and awareness? I don't know who wants to take those, but I think they're a great question. Gordon, the Grammy, please, Gordon, speak to it, but I'll read your response in the meantime. The Grammys are organized by the Recording Professionals of America. In order to be recognized, the music must be distributed in the U.S. as a genre and must sell a quantity to qualify. Absolutely. And so then, what about a Caribbean version? What are your thoughts? Heather, Gordon, Viviam, as well as Duane.
Of course, if we are to organize our industry, then we need to reward and celebrate on an annual basis. So a Caribbean version of the Grammys. Why not? Not why not. That should be mandatory.
I agreed. You heard it here first, y'all. This panel, homework after this, a Grammy session by 2023. Or the Caribbean image, whatever we're gonna call them. Duane, please go ahead.
Most definitely agree with that. I think a Caribbean award show definitely would bring a lot of awareness. And someone in the comments touched on category. I think that's a very, very important point as well. So currently, within the distribution platforms, majority of Caribbean music is lumped into reggae, the reggae category. And this is not just a Caribbean music platform, but it even speaks to the differences between reggae and dancehall. So, say for instance, a very popular Trinidadian artist is selling the most as a Caribbean artist for that week or that month. They're topping the reggae charts as it relates to iTunes and Apple Music and those charts, which really shouldn't be so. There should be a soca music chart, and you can look on who's number one, number two, number three. You can look on who's developing, gain some interest. You shouldn't have to reach on the top of the hill before you gain any traction, and you really should be able to be recognized under the proper category. The problem with this is it's almost an instance where we have to earn the right to be recognized as an individual category as it relates to the distribution platforms. So they're not going to split dancehall, reggae, soca, and so on unless they see the numbers reflecting that it can stand on its own, unfortunately. Which again goes back to having our own platforms that understand the differences in the music. It's not just numbers and how many sales and that kind of thing. They understand, someone mentioned the cadence or whatever, and the differences, and we have our own charts and that kind of thing. And an award show is a very, very good place to start. And just quickly, I do want to commend Kez and the band. Kez, his approach as a Trini, is incredible in my opinion. He is one of the soca artists that really looks on his career and his craft outside of just carnival season. He's looking on it as album and longevity in music, and it's something that I really admire in their approach as Caribbean people. Sure.
Absolutely. Good word. And Heather, I know you want to jump in. I just want to say thank you for some of the comments that we're seeing from William David Muir, who is the chair of Island Space, board chair, as well as founder of the museum, along with Khalib Thompson, who's our executive producer this evening, making everything look good, sound good, feel good here at the museum as well. Beverly, Sister Irie, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Sharon and Charles, who are in our audience, as well as Serge and Keith. Keith, we thank you so much for putting this all together. Keith is an invaluable member of our Island Space team. So, David also asked, does IRAMA have some version of the awards? And yes, there are some. Heather, I know you want to jump in. And so I'm going to ask us to now start going lightning round only because our time is winding down and we have a very special performance for you today.
Okay, I'll be very fast. We do have some experience with award shows. For instance, there used to be the COT Awards, and there were like 25 different categories or 25 different genres that music was awarded. And COT also had members throughout the region, not just from Trinidad and Tobago. So there is some experience, and I saw David put up Rama. So we don't have to start from to reinvent the wheel. We could get together as a group of people in the region and use our varied experiences with similar things and make it into something bigger. That's all I would like to say.
Excellent point. No need to reinvent the wheel. So as we go forward, right, I'm going to ask each panelist to give us one succinct thing that you think that as members of the diaspora we can do to continue to galvanize and even create that critical mass that Duane spoke about, towards ensuring that our music continues to have not only the creative and the feel-good impact, but also the economic impact as well. So, Duane, since you're on screen, I'm going to ask you, and then we'll go. It'll be Duane, and then thank you so much.
All right, no problem. Yes. Quickly, certainly the creation of platforms that the diaspora can rally around in new media and in the new forms of delivering music. Investment as well is very critical for development of anything really. And so, of course, that's a major way that the diaspora can play a part. And if not the actual investment, but the gathering of the data that would drive the investment, I think. And finally, just education in how the industry really works would be the three things for me.
Excellent. Numbers, investment, and education. Gordon, what are your thoughts?
Very quickly, you remember there was something called the West Indian Federation. It was done by politicians and it failed. Let's get together and put together the Caribbean Federation of Music Professionals. I repeat, the Caribbean Federation of Music Professionals. And that would include the Caribbean diaspora. That's it.
Wow. Succinct, clear. I'm in. Where do I join up? Thank you so much, Gordon. And last but not least, our ladies. We're going to ask Heather and Viviam, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are two things: mass intellectual property education so that people understand the value of their creative assets, and two, creating an atmosphere and a culture of respect for creatives, because right now I feel that is sadly lacking, because people behave as though creatives, when your child can't do much else, well, he could learn to sing or something, and they don't understand how much talent and intelligence it takes to create something in music or art or literature. So I would like to see the creation of a culture of respect for creatives, and also the creatives being well educated as well as the general public into understanding the value of creative assets.
Absolutely. Another one that I totally endorse as well, Heather. Excellent. Thank you. Vivian, what are your thoughts on galvanizing in some short term, something succinct and direct that we can do as a dynamic?
No, and I agree completely with Duane, Gordon, Heather, and what has been discussed. I think also the part of the education to me is very important, trying to embed this into the educational curriculum, more music education in theory, history of music, as well as perhaps courses of musicology, workshops, classes. I think the fact of having the island space is essential. It's a place where we can all come together to elevate this profile, learn more, do things that we can all connect with each other. So the part of having that structure, the part of having the education is essential, and everyone to contribute in their own realms, to everyone to contribute in the business world, in the art form, everything. So I think all coming together to this main place and really being able to expose it to the world and gain more strength every time. So I'm super happy that we have this opportunity to do this.
Absolutely. Yes. And Heather, I just thought about what you said in terms of the creative. That's so important. When your children come home and say, I want to be a dancer, encourage them, man. Look at Rex Nettleford. Look at Alvin Ailey. Okay, I'm off my soapbox. But it has been such an honor and pleasure to be with you all this evening as we have dissected and I believe solved some serious problems of our Caribbean music system. Banding together, creating a critical mass, and I believe it is establishing the Caribbean Federation of Music Professionals. I'm all in. I'm Andrea JohnBaptiste, and it has been my honor to be with you this afternoon, this evening, wherever you are. And I want to say thank you very much, Viviam Maria-Lopez, Duane McDonald, Gordon Henderson, and Heather Baldwin-McDowell for sharing your time, your talent, your ideas, your insight with us this evening. And also we want to say thank you for those of you who are online. Thank you for your great comments, questions, and comments, as well as our studio audience. But don't you go anywhere because we are going to close out with a great musical tribute from a wonderful artist representing Haiti, Serge Auguste, right here at Island Space Caribbean Museum, where Caribbean culture unites.
It's like I fit. It's like I fit. How you guys doing? How you guys doing? It's like I fit. I ain't gonna be sitting, but I should be standing up, right? It's like I fit. Can they see me? Y'all good here? Wait, this one? Yeah, man. All right. All right, look. No problem, Serge Auguste. I go by the name of Serge August. Listen, I'm going to perform for you guys today. Hope you guys like it. Thank you guys for tuning in. Share the live. For all my Haitians, share live. Send it to everybody, in your profile. Okay? And while you're there, you can follow me on Facebook also. Follow me on Facebook at Serge August. Follow me on Instagram, Serge Bombastic. Hopefully Shaggy don't sue me. I like that name. Let's go. Okay. Before I perform, the song I'm about to perform is called "All to You." It's on YouTube, Spotify, all the major platforms. Okay, check it out. Let's go. Put the volume up a little bit. Yeah. If you at home, you can dance too. Hey, Serge Auguste lié. Sak pase, na boule, chéri an nou pale. Kote ou soti, kote ou kwale, a ki souye. Cause I would like to know if I can take you on a ride. We can go, we can do anything that you like. It's okay, I don't mind. Everything will be fine. Take my hand, let's just go and leave it all behind. I would rather spend it all on you. Everything feels so right with you. I just wanna give it all to you. You can dance at home. I would rather spend it all on you. Everything feels so right with you. I just wanna give it all to you. Share the life, people. I wanna take you somewhere special. Nobody has to know. Nobody else can go. Baby, I got you. No one hurt you. It's made for me and you. There's nothing else to do. Glad that I met you. Thank God you made you. Yes, you an angel. I wanna caress you. I ain't trying to stress you. I wanna bless you. Allez, push up here. Hey, girl, you ain't never had it like that. No one else can do it like that. I'm about to change your life. Hey, she gon' dance with me. Hey man, that was your time. Hey man, you wanna be my wife. Hey man, I'm about to change your life. Hey, let's say it. I would rather spend it all on you. Everything feels so right with you. I just wanna give it all to you. I would rather spend it all on you. Everything feels so right with you. I just wanna give it all to you. Yeah, man. Thank you so much, people, for listening. Did you guys share the live? All right. All right, don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Instagram at Serge August. I'll be here, all right? Thank you so much for the love. You guys, they said they want me to do one more song, right? One more? All right, yeah. Let me do one more song for you guys. This song is my new single. I dropped it like a month ago, so it's on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram. Let's go. I'm gonna relax. All right, come on. You can put it up a little bit. Yeah. Baby. Yeah. My lady. Serge, Auguste, yeah. I done met a lot of girls before. None of them compare to you for sure. Your body, your smile, I love it. Oh my. If I ever get you mad, oh, I'll get on my knees and say I'm sorry. If I ever see you sad, oh, then I'll do anything to keep you smiling. Cause you're the one for me. Don't need nobody else. Rather be by myself. Cause you're the one for me. Don't need nobody else. Rather be by myself. Yeah, yeah. Love like this is very hard to find. Tell me who you share a song. You got me, oh my, I'm falling so bad. Every moment with you's priceless. Every single touch I feel inside me. If I lose you, I'll be like this. Feels like I'm in heaven when you're around me. Cause you're the one for me. Don't need nobody else. Rather be by myself. Cause you're the one for me. Don't need nobody else. Rather be by myself. I don't need nobody else. No. I don't need nobody else, baby. I don't need nobody else. You don't want for me. All I need is you, my baby.
One, Serge Auguste. There's only one, and we thank you for being with us today at Island Space Caribbean Museum. It is our pleasure. And so, for those of you online, our studio audience, thank you once again for joining us. And please don't forget, if you are in South Florida, visit us at the Westfield Broward Mall. And you can Google it, you'll know exactly where to find it. We're on the side of the fountains, and there is plenty of parking. And if you are feeling so generous, okay, to help us to keep the lights on and to keep panels such as these going, please give. Go to islandspacefl.org, or you can email at give@islandspacefl.org. No shame in my game asking for you to go online and make a donation tonight, because this does not happen by happenstance. It takes time, it takes talent, and it takes your money, and we need it. So we thank you so much. www.islandspacefl.org. Give. Thank you.